in a quiet tent hidden in the desert. A man lay fast asleep, trusting the wrong woman. Moments later, a wooden peg drove through his skull, and the heavens sang her praise. Who was this woman? Why did she do it? And why did God honor her for it? Her name is Jael. Not a queen, not a warrior, not a priestess. Just a woman with strong hands, a steady heart, and the quiet wisdom of someone who sees what others overlook. But before we reach that moment, we must travel back. Back to the suffering, back to the silence, back to the cries of a broken nation. The land of Israel was groaning. Again, the people had turned their hearts from God. Judges 4 verse 1. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of the Lord. They had chased after idols. They abandoned the law, forgot the covenant, and blended into the nations around them. And so God allowed them to fall. For 20 long years, King Jabin of Canaan ruled over them from Hazor. He appointed Sisera, his military commander, to ensure no rebellion could rise. Sisera's army was unmatched. He had 900 iron chariots, a terrifying force in a world where most soldiers fought on foot with little armor. He sent patrols through the land, plundering cities, burning crops, stealing children. The people of Israel fled from their homes. Highways became empty. Trade stopped. Village life was no more. Women carried water in silence, eyes down. Children were taught to hide rather than sing. No one dared resist. If someone stood up to the Canaanites, they vanished. If a village protested, it was leveled. The sound of iron wheels was a sound of terror. And for 20 years, that terror ruled. Still, they remembered the God of their fathers. They whispered prayers into the wind. They cried in secret. And slowly, their prayers rose to heaven. Amid this dark time, God raised a woman. Her name was Deborah. She was a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, and a judge over Israel. She did not live in a palace or command armies. She sat beneath a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel. And there, the people came to her, not for war, but for wisdom. Deborah was more than a leader. She was a mother, not just to children, but to a whole nation. She carried their pain, their confusion, their shame. She listened to disputes, gave counsel, and prayed over the land. One day, the word of the Lord came to her. Summon Barak, son of Abinoam. Tell him to take 10,000 men from Naphtali and Zebulun and go to Mount Tabor. There I will draw Sisera out, and I will deliver him into your hands. Deborah obeyed without hesitation. She summoned Barak and gave him God's command. But Barak hesitated. Judges 4 verse 6. Has not the Lord commanded you to take 10,000 men and go against Sisera? If you go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Deborah agreed to go but said firmly, Very well, but because of the path you are taking, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman. No one knew what that meant. Some assumed Deborah herself would deliver the blow. But God had someone else in mind. Far from the battlefield and political schemes, Jael lived a quiet life. She was the wife of Heber the Kenite, a man from the clan descended from Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses. The Kenite were a nomadic people who lived in tents, moved with the seasons, and stayed away from Israel's tribal politics. Heber had separated from his kin and pitched his tent near Kadesh, away from the center of conflict. He had made a peace agreement with King Jabin, perhaps to protect his household. Jael, however, was not blind. She listened to the stories from travelers, of Canaanite cruelty, of Sisera's pride, of Israel's suffering. She helped care for the wounded who passed by. She offered water to fleeing families. She watched and remembered. Each day, she drove tent pegs into the hard earth. Heavy iron nails hammered to hold the house together. It was a task for strong hands. She had done it countless times, but she never imagined it would become her weapon. Barak gathered the men. They climbed Mount Tabor and waited. Sisera heard of this and prepared his chariots. Confident in his army, he approached the battlefield with no fear. But God has a different plan. Judges 5 verse 20. But God moves. The stars fought from heaven. As Sisera's forces entered the Kishon Valley, the skies grew dark. Rain began to fall. The river swelled. Mud swallowed the chariot wheels. Horses slipped. Soldiers panicked. Barak's men charged from the mountain. With nowhere to retreat and no power to advance, Sisera's army crumbled. His iron chariots, once so feared, became useless in the flood. Sisera fled on foot. He ran for miles. Bruised, soaked, and humiliated, he searched for safety. He found a tent. Jael saw him coming. She recognized the panic in his eyes, the urgency in his steps. Though her husband had made peace with his king, Jael had made no such peace in her heart. She stepped forward and offered what seemed like kindness. "Come in, my lord. Do not be afraid." She welcomed him inside, gave him milk, covered him with a blanket, spoke softly. He asked her to keep watch and tell anyone who comes knocking that she did not see him. She agreed. He laid down. Exhaustion overtook him. The great Sisera, once proud, now powerless, slept like a child. And Jael knew this was not chance. This was not accident. She had a choice. She could look away or act. Quietly, she reached for a tent peg. She picked up the hammer. She knelt beside him. Judges 4 verse 21. She drove the peg into his temple and he died. With one blow, he was gone. Barak arrived not long after. He was still searching for Sisera. Jael stepped out of her tent and said, "Come, and I will show you the man whom you seek." He entered, and there he saw what no one expected. The commander of Canaan's army, defeated not in battle, but in sleep. Not by a sword, but by a tent peg. Not by a man, but by a woman. The word of the Lord had come true. Israel rejoiced. The enemy had fallen. The people had seen God move. Deborah and Barak sang a song of remembrance, a song of praise. They sang of God's might, of the stars fighting from heaven, of the river that swept Sisera away, of the courage of the tribes, and of Jael. Most blessed of women be Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, of tent-dwelling women most blessed. He asked for water and she gave him milk. In a bowl fit for nobles she brought him curdled milk. Her hand reached for the tent peg, her right hand for the workman's hammer. She struck Sisera. She crushed his head. She shattered and pierced his temple. Jael had no title, no army, no prophecy. She simply knew what was right. When the moment came, she didn't hesitate. And through her act, God brought deliverance to a nation. Today, her name lives on, not in monuments or royal records, but in the pages of Scripture and the songs of the faithful. She was a wife, a tent dweller, a witness to injustice. And when evil stepped into her home, she did not run. She stood, and heaven remembered her. You may feel ordinary, unseen, unqualified, but in the hands of God, even a tent peg can change history.